Good morning, guys. Get in here, get in here, get in here. If you missed my live last night, I'm sorry. But, however, I'm here to give you a quick update of a little bit of what happened yesterday, some of the key points, so that way you can stay up to date. So, check it. We got a chance to hear three different testimonies from three different people yesterday. We heard from Don Richards, we heard from Kerry Morgan, and we heard briefly from David James, who is actually Diddy's ex personal assistant. Throughout all of these different testimonies, right? When we're going through Dawn, we heard the first part from her where she gave this jaw dropping event of Diddy assaulting Cassie. Within this, however, the defense came back and they really poked holes within certain parts of her testimony pertaining to how she really was after the money and how after Diddy Dirty Money as well as Danity Kane, her career really did not go anywhere. So the defense harped on that and they kind of poked a few holes, and I've been told from some of my friends that are on the inside that the jury really it didn't go over too well with them. You kind of saw a little disdain from them as well too. Then Kerry Morgan does come on the stand and she tells her events of how she was beat by Diddy, how she was always with Cassie and Diddy, how Cassie was jealous at certain times. However, Kerry was constantly there for her, and she also explained how Cassie was not on any type of rugs, put the D in front of that, or any extracurricular as far as alcohol, anything of that nature prior to engaging with Diddy. So she lays the foundation for us to understand that Cassie wasn't out here moving reckless or crazy prior to her engagement with him. She also talked about how Diddy assaulted her with a wooden hanger and she ended up having to go to urgent care. From there, she also talked about how Diddy dragged Cassie 50 yards down a hallway by her hair, how Cassie ran out into the woods to hide from Diddy, and a multitude of other things. Not to mention them hiding in a ditch out in the woods in Jamaica to get away from this man. So she goes to really lay the foundation of how insane and crazy Diddy's actions were when he partook in these extracurricular. But yes, how insane Diddy really acted once he was on these rugs, right? There's also another incident that Kerry talks about how when she was staying with Cassie in the, what is it, I think it's called Comstock, when she lived on the 17th floor, how after he assaulted Cassie, he came there and he banged on the door for so long with a hammer, y'all. This man banged on the door with a hammer that the police, that is the true reason that they ended up coming. And from there, Kerry said that she ended up sending a photograph of the police card that was left because Cassie would not show her ID and she would not talk to them, to the security guard, D-Rock, as well as Roger Barnes. And there's multiple different times that the security were present for a multitude of these different assaults and they did absolutely nothing. They sat by and watched it. There was even a situation yesterday during one of the testimonies where Usher's name was brought up. However, it was not said in the transcripts that were released in real time yesterday that they were out to dinner and the security once again sat by and watched Diddy punch Cassie in her stomach to the point of her hunching over, and Usher was present for it. And once again, nobody did absolutely nothing. So now we're going to fast forward to Kerry has completed her testimony, talked about how she was there present for a multitude of different things. She was in Ibiza, Miami, all of those different places. Now David James has taken the stand. And man, did he drop a whole bunch of those B-bombs on the defense. I don't even know how they're going to be able to cross today. I'm like really kind of anxious to see how this plays out today. So I'm just going to jump to one of the quick things and I'm going to read this. The prosecutor asked David James, how did he come to work for Diddy? And he said after he graduated from college in Michigan, he faxed over his resume to Bad Boy. And he had an interview at 1710 Broadway, where he was assigned 40 different assignments to schedule them on a planner. And that was basically his tasking to see if he would be able to get the job. There was one part where he said that they asked him. So the prosecutors are now asking David James what are some of the things that he had to know in order to get the position as an assistant for Diddy. And David James says, I had to know his food and restaurant preferences. He'd ask me why I would make a good assistant. And he said, can't stop, won't stop. And he said once he said that, he got the job. And then he said, did he have other assistants? David James names Miss Robles, Mr. Barber, and he said that there were others. There was another part where the prosecutors asked David James who was part of his security staff. David James names D-Rock, Roger Barnes, and Uncle Paulie. Within that, the prosecutors asked him, you work 20-hour days? And he said, yes, security did it too. They asked David James about an incident where Diddy assaulted his chef, and the chef's name is Chef Jordan, aka Jordan Atkinson. And I feel as though he will take the stand either today or potentially tomorrow to give his recant of the event that happened between him and Diddy. They also asked David about who Diddy's girlfriends were at the time. David says Kim Porter, Sarah, Tara, Yana, and also Cassie. So at that time, Diddy had 5 different girlfriends at that one time. Then David James goes on to talk about a conversation that he had with Cassie at Star Island, where Kerry Morgan was also present. And Cassie says, this lifestyle is crazy. David James says, why don't you leave? And she said, Diddy controls my life, my music, and he pays for my apartment. That was one thing. Then this is the final part, right? Then the prosecutors go on to a different conversation. And David James talks about, it was about Cassie's music, basically, how she was excited about this album and how she was pre-selecting songs. And he said that that album never came out. They also talked about a conversation that David James overheard Diddy having. And he said, Diddy said, Kim is my queen out in LA with my family. He said, I have Cassie right where I want her. She's young and moldable. The prosecutor says, Your Honor, how much longer do we need? I think right now is a good time to take a break. So based off of the information that David James has provided from yesterday, today is going to be very, very interesting. So today's cross-examination is going to be really, really interesting for the defense of coming back from all of the things that David James said that he was a witness to. And once again, this is only the very, very beginning of his testimony. So we have a lot to look forward to today. Once again, Cassie's mother will eventually take the stand. We're not sure if that's today or if it's going to be tomorrow, if today will just continue out for the rest of David James, and then we'll get a chance to see a bit of someone else's testimony. I'm thinking it's possibly going to be Chef Jordan. So make sure that you like, share, and comment on this video, and make sure you subscribe or follow me. And if you haven't already, make sure that you tune in for my live at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time over on TikTok, where you'll get a full in-depth review of day 7. I'll see you guys later.